Mustache Tales.
Yeah!
Hey everyone,
Hello.
Welcome to another episode of Mustache Tales. We've got a great guest today, don't we, Jay?
We do. Our old friend Josh Pate.
Hi, guys.
So, Josh, just to give you a rundown of what we've been doing here, we usually start every talk with a story and take it from there. Jay and I were talking, so I've got the story today. And it was triggered by something that happened between you and I this weekend, Josh, where you met my mom. So we're going to go deep cut. This is about 30 years ago in Chicago, Illinois at Poplar Creek. One of the most informative and enlightening experiences of my life happened at a Diana Ross concert there. And the reason I brought my mom into this is because, Josh, you met her this weekend. She is and was, I mean, wouldn't you say she's an attractive woman, right?
She's a stylish lady, for sure.
See, you handled that like a true friend, because I walked you right into that to say she was hot, and you didn't do that.
I'm not going to talk about your mom that way, man.
Dude, you're my first friend that's never taken that shot, man. I love you so
I
much.
would have taken that bait.
That's why I didn't throw it to you, Jay. I threw it to Josh. So that informs the story because when my mom, there was a period of her life where she had two young boys, and she was in Chicago, and she was being pursued by a lot of suitors, let's say. And these men in Chicago would always try to take her on dates and invite her on trips, and she rarely said yes. But one time, a gentleman, I don't remember his name, he really found her Achilles heel, and he asked my mom on a date with 2 front row tickets to Diana Ross at Poplar Creek. And she did not feel comfortable at this period of her life taking that date. So she said, no, I'm with my boys that weekend. So this hitter, whatever his name is, a distant memory, he comes back with 4 front row tickets to Diana Ross at Poplar Creek. Now,
he was coming out strong.
He knew exactly where to go because my mom was a singer. She was a chanteuse. She sang she opened for Bobby Short. She would sing like kind of Fabulous Baker Boys style on top of pianos and lounges in Chicago. So she was going to take, this gentleman was going to take my mom and her 2 sons to this concert. I'm 13 years old. My brother's 11. We show up at the show, Poplar Creek, probably 30,000 people on stage. I had no idea who Diana Ross was before this, but I slowly realized through the course of the concert that she's one of the best singer-songwriters of all time.
Like, you actually did know half of her songs.
It all felt so familiar. And so I was so surprised for the last song. She came back from the encore. We're in the front row now because this guy's trying to sleep with my mom, and which didn't happen. Diana Ross is on stage with this giant gown, just lights everywhere, huge band on stage, and she reaches into the front row, and she pulls me up on stage with her.
Oh, boy.
And I'm just dancing with Diana Ross at Poplar Creek.
No way,
like shaking my white ass, doing everything I can. The Running Man had just come out. So I'm like doing the Running Man, and I'm like, I think I'm killing it. And she takes me to the front of the stage, and what I hear is maybe not what she said, but what I heard, she takes me to the front of the stage, and we do a bow, and she says, "This kid is the future." And we take the bow.
No way.
And I'm
Come on.
Holy shit, dude. Diana Ross just said that I was the future. So I come down off the stage. I'm like on a 12 buzz.
Future of what?
Just like the future of everything, the general future of humanity in my head. So we're walking to the parking lot, and everyone's pointing at me, and they're like, "Great job up there, man. Great job." And I'm like, thank you. So great. So for about 4 years, I carried that around in my psyche, that Diana Ross had brought me on stage and said that I was the future. My brother was there at the show too. So,
he was the past at that point.
She's like, what does that make me?
Exactly.
So those were very formative years from like 12 to 16 through every, breakup, schoolyard fight, bad stuff that happened in my life, I think I had a subconscious thing in my head, which was Diana Ross thinking that I was the future. Until I'm at a dinner with some family and I overhear my mom relaying to other adults the story of the Diana Ross concert at Poplar Creek. And she says, it was such an incredible night. It was so amazing. Hayes got on stage, and actually at the end of it, she held up his hand and said, "The kids are the future."
The kids. I
go, what? That's not what she said. She said, "This kid's the future."
No.
And my brother goes, "You dumbass. You thought all this time that Diana Ross said that you were the future." But I thought of that story, Josh, one, because you met her this weekend, and two, because it's just part of like being around for a while. Like when you think one thing and then you realize something totally different.
You were like Bill Murray
later.
in Caddyshack, man. You had like the Dalai Lama, so you had that going for you.
Yeah, that was what carried me through. But then when you find out the truth, it was like some Santa Claus shit. You're like, what?
Did that make you think that you wanted to be in show business?
I think it made me think that I was invincible for a long time, which might have led to a career in show business.
That's how you ended up on the Gunslingers, man.
Which made me think, I did. I took it into football, whatever I was doing. I just had the blessing of Diana Ross thinking that.
We should all be blessed by Diana Ross. It sounds like we were, actually.
It was
not just you.
And I could have blessed other people, because once Diana Ross canonizes you, you can start passing it off.
Absolutely.
That's fantastic. I love that. I love it.
That was my story.
So our guest today is Josh Pate, the showrunner, producer, writer, not director, right?
Not
of
director.
Outer Banks.
I actually,
Outer Banks.
well, I pinch hit sometimes. My brother got COVID last year, so I pinched hit for like 6 days. But no, I try to stay away from that. That job's too hard. Directing. Too much work.
I hadn't seen Outer Banks, and I know it's the most popular, most streamed show on Netflix.
Is it in the billions, the streaming hours?
It's crazy. It's definitely got a B in front of it, man. It's just like, it's mind-boggling.
But I sat down and watched the pilot last night in anticipation of this conversation. And dude, I was like in it fucking fast. I mean, I was like, oh, like I don't know what I expected, but it's got this thriller side to it that is like reminded me a little bit of Bill Paxton and Billy Bob's film, A Simple Plan. I don't know where it's going, but I'm about to get deep into Outer Banks. I was like, because Outer Banks has the name of it is so evocative of like the edge of the country, right? And it's like,
right? Yeah, I know. We totally, that was on purpose.
But I mean, it works. It works, and it's fun to watch a professional showbiz manipulator like you, like attack a pilot, right? And I say that because I'm writing pilots all the time, and I'm like, well, you got to have some gunplay in the pilot. Like, yeah, it should be in the second episode, but we want to keep people excited. And I was like, this is such a fun. It was so fun to watch. On top of it being really excellent, and there are a lot of hot people in it. Attractive, and I was like, I'm totally being sucked into the Josh and Jonas Pate vortex, and I love it.
It was fun, man. We definitely try to keep the plot boiling at all times. So, yeah.
Did you come up with it? Because you grew up in the area, and how did you decide to start telling stories?
I'd always had, it was kind of, I grew up around on Kiowa Island, which is outside Charleston, and then also around like Wrightsville Beach. So, there were a bunch of surf fights down there, and it was cliquey, and it had gangs, and we had a VW van called the Twinkie. And so there's lots of little autobiographical details. I got my ass kicked by a guy named Topper in high school, who's the big villain in the show. And so it's kind of sprinkled with stuff. But I was, it was funny, man. I was like, I didn't think we were going to sell the show. I'd read, you guys know Tony Gilroy, the great screenwriter who does Andor.
Yeah.
He had some quote, because you're always looking for like a big idea, right? Like teenage boy gets bitten by a radioactive spider, blah, blah, blah. And so he had some quote.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good idea. There goes my spec. He had some quote where he was like, don't look for the big idea, like focus on the smallest little detail that catches your attention and build from there. So I just read that quote and I was online and I saw this photograph of this abandoned mansion on the Outer Banks that during a power outage. And it was this like evocative photograph and it kind of triggered all these childhood memories of the beach and being down there. And that's kind of how it started. And we started sketching out like characters and stuff. I work with a guy named Shannon Burke, who's a novelist primarily, who's an old writer buddy of mine. We were kicking it around, and I called up my brother, who's a director, and we told him the story, and I was reminding him about all these stories from high school. And my brother goes, "What is this, a fucking tone poem? Like, add a treasure hunt." And he hung up. And so we were like, okay,
always the brothers,
totally, because it was all charactery and like nothing really happened. And he was like, "I'm dying over here, man. We need a story." So
you're not the future.
Yeah. So we added the treasure hunt, and we went out and pitched it.
It came out because you think of all the stuff that's available for people to watch. With the first episode premiered before the lockdown, right? Or was it? Did it come out when everyone? It was during.
Yeah. So God, it was like fish in a barrel. We got really lucky where everyone was cooped up, and we had this like outdoor show. So I think we definitely got a tailwind from COVID. Honestly,
people watching it, and you put it out not knowing. You just make something with your brother and Shannon, telling a story about your childhood, thinking like we're happy to just be doing this.
But it's been born like under a star, like from the beginning. Like I didn't think we were going to sell it. I told my agent, he was like, okay. And we went out and pitched it. We didn't even get back to the car before the first place we pitched wanted to buy it. Then it was like a bidding war, and I was like, really? And ever since then, man, it's just been like a rocket ship. So
I love that. Jay mentions something about the cast, and I know from talking to you, Josh, you guys did something really awesome at the beginning when you got everyone together. Didn't you section off the groups of actors and have them like
we totally did, because we picked all these. The casting process was brutal. I'd been through the process a couple times before, and I always I didn't take casting that seriously, and then I realized that's a major mistake. So this time we took it extremely seriously. We found all these kids under rocks way outside of LA, Florida, Alaska, Carolinas. And, they had to be best friends, and they didn't really know each other. So the first thing we did was we locked them into the main set, which was the chateau, like John B's house in the show. And we locked them in there, the actors, for a weekend with like a keg and a bunch of stuff to party with. And we were like, you guys get to know each other. And after that, like 72 hours, we went back over there, picked them up off the couch. They all had, polio. We're all like laid out everywhere. And they just clicked, man. They just had this instant chemistry. So, but that's how we started, to generate chemistry.
It's funny lock them together. That first episode, you're like, I know I'm in show business, but it didn't occur to me that they were not the very best of friends. Like you feel it right away.
Yeah, they really clicked, and they're super tight off screen still. They all run around together. So sometimes you just have to get lucky, and like again, man, the show is just the casting just really clicked.
We've been talking about that the last couple episodes because we've been telling some Broken Lizard stories and how those, Jay and his buddies all went to college together, and there were some stories about where they made something, then they tried to make a pilot and cast like a bizarro version of Broken Lizard people.
Younger.
That's like a hat on a hat.
Pilot. Yeah, we made a pilot for that film. Yeah, right. Yeah. We made a pilot for that film, Puddle Cruiser, which was at Sundance, I think a year after The Grave. You guys were 96, and I think we were 97.
Right on. Yeah.
The Grave also has a crime story to it, right? I mean,
we didn't know what the hell we were doing when we made The Grave, Like, I remember when we sold that pilot and we had to get a couple people. It was kind of foreign sales, it was an indie film. They said, well, they liked the script. They're like, if you can get the actor, you can do it. And like, who's going to direct? And we were like, oh, we're going to direct. And they're like, well, you've directed before, right? And we were like, oh yeah. I remember when we got to the set, I'd never been on a film set before. And we got to the set and my brother turned to me, he's like, what are all these trucks for? I was like, I don't know, dude.
I remember that too. I remember walking onto the Puddle Cruiser fucking set and I'm like, all those semi trucks and all those people. I'm like, what the fuck is all that? What do they all do?
I know. We just lied our way into it. And The Grave had a funny story too, because we had kind of moved to Hollywood. We had met some like younger actors and stuff that were unknown that were trying to make it. And they were, they had like lists of names that they could sell in Germany that would finance the film and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And we brought them Matthew McConaughey and
Giovanni?
No, it was, Giovanni he was actually in it. And then, but we brought him Matt McConaughey, and they're like, who the hell's Matt McConaughey? So Craig Sheffer played the part. I'm sure you guys got a few of those.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, definitely.
Well, that's where you guys first met. You overlapped on the film festival circuit. Where did this ping pong game take place that I've heard so much about?
Oh God, it was up at my brother's house.
Yeah, that's right. That's
up in Sun Valley. And we have some mutual friends, from like Mallory, May, and all those people.
Right, sure.
Yeah, actually, I think I was the perfect amount of buzzed because I beat Jay the first game, and I don't think Jay was paying attention. I didn't realize I was dealing with like the Tiger Woods of ping pong at that point. And then Jay was like rematch, and he beat me like 7 games in a row. And I remember you were like, and I was playing with like a sandpaper paddle, and you're like, you're never gonna beat me with that paddle, dude. And
well, I was traveling with my own paddle in a case. I had rosewater spray to make it sticky. Like there was no chance. Yeah. Once I really, you can't beat a guy with that kind of paddle. It's not possible.
Oh my gosh! Yeah, once you train those laser eyes on me, I was just like.
You're sneaky competitive, Jay. You come across as a nice guy, but now listening to Josh and Kevin and Hef talk about how you guys first met, you were gunning for each of them when you met them.
That's right. I'm gunning. I'm probably gunning for you, Hayes. You just don't know it yet.
Now I got to get this paddles. We got to, I don't know. My game's pretty rusty right now. I don't know if I could.
I'll send you one.
Yeah,
I'll send you one.
But now it's pickleball now, guys. No one's doing ping pong.
Pickleball. I still haven't tried it yet.
Oh, it's great. It's halfway between a game and a sport, so you can drink while you play. And
nice.
A
lot of the ping pong stuff translates. So
it's fast twitch. You don't take a full stroke. You're kind of bopping it over, and you feel both like a kid and like 90 years old at the same time.
It's also one of those games that's like, you can easily trick yourself into that you're better than you are. Like things kind of go well early, So pretty fun.
I'm gonna try it. Are you playing any golf, Josh?
I don't that much.
No.
I probably should, but I don't know. In the summertime, I ride bikes more. So
you're up in Sun Valley full time now?
Oh yeah, that's where I see old Hayes up here.
Nice.
He's asking you about golf because he wants to get you out there and take your money.
Oh Jesus, you'll kill me.
I played 700 of the last 780 days, Josh.
Is that right?
Golf.
Oh my gosh. So what are you shooting now? What are you at?
Well, I gotta
be whittling that thing down, man.
The last 3 days, I played 9 each day, and I shot a 37, 41, and a 36.
Right on. That's what you got to do, right, with golf. Like you got to play.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's like you're 120, man.
You got to play, and you got to think about it all the time, and you got to watch Instagram videos on it and talk about it all the time. That's the important thing.
That's the important thing.
You're out there playing in the rain too, Jay. I remember talking to you a while ago in Vancouver, and you were out there with a slicker on just playing.
Yeah, I play no matter what the weather is. And I'm addicted. It's like a deep addiction. I mean,
there's lots of guys that have gone down that hole, man.
Yeah.
You're not alone.
Jay, what did your grandmother? We got out of the car at one point. We were going to see a movie. This was years ago, and it was raining, and we had no umbrellas. She had some quote that she said about the weather.
My mother, when we were children, and maybe our whole life, she's like, we don't use umbrellas because the rain is as good as the sun. And I was like,
that's some bullshit right there.
That's something. I mean,
he's saying this to me as he's like,
you're like, wait a second.
Guys, I've been playing around. We talked a little bit about the origin stories of making stuff on your own and going to festivals and then bringing it to life. And I've been playing around with this chat GBT stuff, just typing in questions, because I didn't really become aware of it a lot until what's been talked about recently with the Writers Guild, and this kind of threat that not just creative people are feeling, but like companies that make stuff and automation is kind of like in the purview of everyone's mind now. So I wanted to give it a litmus test and to see like how challenging the technology is. So I asked this chat GBT.
It's P, I think, isn't it?
Chat GBT, right?
GPT, yeah.
GPT.
Yes.
Guys, we're so fucked.
Ask it what its name is. Ask it what its name is.
Right.
Exactly.
The machines are going to win. I've got dyslexia.
Exactly.
It's like it's probably listening to this being like, oh, we're going to get that guy.
Definitely.
So I said, tell me a joke about podcasts in the style of Steve Martin. And I did this for a bunch of different comedians to just see if it could generate the original material. So at the sake of being boring for a couple seconds, I'll read you the responses because they're kind of concise. But tell me a joke about podcasts in the style of Steve Martin. Did you hear the one about the podcast that was so boring it puts listeners to sleep faster than a bottle of Ambien? I mean, I love a good audio snooze fest as much as the next guy, but that show was a real wild and crazy party. If by wild and crazy you mean as excited as watching paint dry, thank you very much.
Dude, look how it got wild and crazy in there from Steve Martin.
Right.
Right.
And then I asked it, tell me a joke about podcasts in the style of Chris Rock.
Oh boy. Some salads are going to get tossed.
You know what it's like with what podcasts are like? Marriage. You get all excited at first thinking you're going to learn something new and interesting every week. But after a while, you realize it's just the same old stuff over and over again.
Not bad.
Not bad.
It's in there.
I mean, it could get sharper, but good start.
And then I'll do one more comedian before I asked it to tell me the style of the podcast in the style of Jay Chandrasekhar, which I did. I wanted to see how deep the knowledge was, bro. So then I asked Rodney Dangerfield, and it said, I'll tell you, podcasts, they get no respect at all. I was listening to one the other day, and the host said, we've got a great show lined up for you today. I said, that's a first.
That's pretty good.
Not bad.
It's scary.
That's a verse. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Jay's, I got a couple responses on yours because I did it. Tell me a joke about podcasts in the style of Jay Chandrasekhar. No other context, just the name. You know what's great about podcasts is you can listen to them everywhere. You can listen to them on your way to work, you're at the gym, or even on the toilet. I mean, I don't recommend it, but hey, it's your life. And if you notice how many podcasts are out there these days, these podcasts are everything. How to bake a cake, there's a podcast for that. How to change a tire, there's a podcast for that. How to find happiness in a world full of chaos, well, we're still looking for that one.
Oh, going kind of existential, dude. I don't know.
What?
Why do you cheat on that, Jay?
I don't know. I mean,
it was existential. Wow. Do you think it picked up on a stoner vibe, and that's why it threw in a question?
I was just fixating on the toilet. Like, does it feel like I do toilet humor? That's what and now I'm insecure based on what this fucking computer thinks.
That's why you never Google yourself.
That's right.
Never, ever.
Never,
True.
Never, ever.
I actually feel that way when you're meeting someone for the first time and they're like, hey, you got to come meet my buddy Tim. And you get their first and last name and they give it to you. I think a lot of people look up who they're going to meet before they go into an encounter. I'm not talking about a business meeting. I'm just talking about hanging out with someone. And I don't like to know that information before going into an encounter.
Oh, I do it for biz meetings all the time, man. If I got like some meeting with some cat I don't know, I look them up.
Me too.
Just to get a vibe, just to be like, okay, I won't mention, this or that based on,
For business meetings, I get it. But if you're just meeting someone socially, like you're going to play golf with someone, you don't want to know, like.
No, that would be weird.
It's weird, right? It's a
little,
yeah, it's weird. It would be weird.
But I've never done that for a pickle match or ping pong or anything.
Unless it's like this guy crushed his left hand in a blender when he was 13, and then you could know to hit it to that side of his pickleball.
Pretty soon, though, we'll probably be able to get on chat and be like, "What is this guy's ping pong weaknesses?" And they can tell you,
Right.
And there's so many companies. There's hundreds of these little nascent AI companies, each kind of focusing on a specific aspect of, and a lot of them are focused on film. Flawless AI is just amazing. What the stuff they're doing, like with ADR, for example, they have technology where Netflix puts out a show in 180 countries and they subtitle it, right? So pretty soon they're going to be able to have like the characters on any TV show when it goes to Germany or France or Brazil, they'll be able to speak in their own voice in Portuguese or in French or with the mouth fixed, so that you don't have to have subtitles anymore. It just immediately goes into the local language. So that hasn't been deployed on a wide scale, but that technology already exists.
That will ruin, we wrote me and another guy wrote a script called The Dubber back in I don't even know, 2009 or something, or maybe 2012.
The Dubber,
and,
that's good.
The Dubber, and the premise is that there's like Tom Cruise is like a famous American actor, but there's, he has a guy in Italy who does all his movies and a guy in Japan who does all his movies. So the guy in Italy, I don't even remember the plot at this point, but it has been resold, and Benicio del Toro was involved, and then like Jim Carrey was involved, and I'm not even involved anymore. They just send me a check every time it gets resold. But the premise is there's a really famous Italian guy who does Tom Cruise's voice, and he's the hero. I don't even.
That guy's fucked now.
That guy's fucked.
Yeah,
it's funny. These technologies. I have such a like. My view is like, if I don't use it, then it'll be okay. Like the society won't fall because I refuse to use it. Right. No, that's how I felt about Twitter. I'm like, it's too whimsical a name for me to try. And I got into it like years later after like comics who are, lesser known have over 1 million followers, and I got like 38,000. I'm like, God, I'm so stupid. And I did the same thing with Instagram. I did the same thing with TikTok. And until you said this, I'm like, I'm not doing a chat GPT. And now I'm going to okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to get in. I'm going to follow you, and I'm going to need your help. I'm going to do it.
No,
I don't know what I'm going to do.
There's some of it's just getting your mind around what's possible, because it's such a huge game changer. I think like I'm interested in motion capture, where they put all the dots on Andy Serkis's face and then they turn him into Gollum. There's technology that's kind of on the drawing board now that's going to make that a lot cheaper. It'd really help with like sci-fi and fantasy stuff, but man,
we were talking about the documentary, Jurassic Punk, this documentary about the early days of industrial light and magic, and how it went from the claymation guys and the guys who built practicals on Terminator 2 was like this really kind of turning point, because part of Terminator 2 was practicals, and then the Abyss, Abyss, when the water creature came through, and that head like goes through the ship, and then Terminator 2 was all based on that one scene in the Abyss, and they're like, what if we can do like a main character in the movie that's liquid metal, which looks just like what it was in the Abyss? And so that was a big jump. And then when Jurassic Park came out, and that's why the movie, this guy Spaz Williams is his name, and he revolutionized all this digital stuff. And he's like a dude, like a rock dude. Now, like
he was like, I can do that T-Rex.
He's like, I'll do the T-Rex.
Yeah.
And not just in the wide. They wanted to show all the dinosaurs out in the fields in a big wide shot. So they gave that to one company. And then they gave another company the close-up shots and the mid shots. And this guy Spaz built the T-Rex in a computer and showed it to Kathleen Kennedy, all these different people behind the movie. He didn't present it to him. That he waited till they walked in his office and he just had it projecting on the screen. And the way he did it to make it look real was he started with the skeletal system. He went like super specific. The skeletal system of the dinosaur paw hitting the ground. And he then worked backwards and said, if the bones hit like this, how does that make the muscles reverberate up the forearm when it sits? And he just
so it has like, it's like a 3D weight to it almost.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That was a huge, that was a massive breakthrough. Absolutely.
I went from those films, The Abyss to T2 to Jurassic Park, and then we were just in.
But I think all that's dwarfed by AI. It's going to be dwarfed.
Yeah, because you don't even need to design it in a computer, right? It's already in there.
I mean, they're getting there. Some of the things I like is, you can input video and then you can turn it into. So it's like Jay's walking down the street, he's eating an ice cream cone, and you can take that raw footage and turn that into a claymation animated clip of Jay eating an ice cream in claymation, or Jay in the style of the Simpsons animation, and just from actually shooting the video. So it's like, oh, okay, this is what, and then boop, boop, that's kind of here now. So like, I think the first thing where AI is really going to have a massive impact is in animation.
That's crazy, Josh, to start that way, to shoot it real and then make it.
Yeah, you can shoot it real on your iPhone, and then
Waking Life did that. The Waking Life, Rick Linklater shot it real, and then they animated over the top of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Over the top of the frames. But I'm against any technology that's going to encourage more people to crawl into my window and steal from me and slit my throat. So that's my big fear of AI is I like people employed. I really do. And the other thing that bothers me about it is that anybody with this computer and a little phone is going to be able to compete now with us in show business. And I'm like, I don't need that either. I mean, I like this like system where I'm like,
we can keep some of the riffraff out. Yeah,
that's right. That's right.
I don't know. Like, I think still, when you mess with it, it's like when we first got a computer. Remember when you had to do whiteout when you were typing stuff and you got word processing? It still matters who's driving the AI and telling it, to do this and that. So I don't, it's definitely not anywhere close to the point where like it generates good stories on its own. They're really generic. But it's, there's other aspects to writing where it's really helpful. But like, so I'm not as afraid that like suddenly a kid with some AI who sucks at storytelling is suddenly going to be a good storyteller. I don't think it helps that way. You kind of have to know which way to push it.
Right, but the hardest part of writing a script is actually, in my view, breaking it and saying, this is the first act, this is what's going to happen, these are some of the jokes, this is what's going to have second act, these are the jokes, this is how it's going to end, these are the jokes. That's the hardest part. And then executing that into a 110, 115 page script is just as hard. It's really fucking hard. Now, if you tell a computer, write my first draft for me, pal, write me a golf movie, then you can look at it and go, oh, I'll fix that. And like the easy part is rewrite. And it's going to take a whole bunch of these lazy hobos who are like, hey, I want to be a screenwriter. And it's going to make them a screenwriter if the computer can write their first draft for them. That's what I'm afraid of.
It can definitely throw up some like like the framing of a house. But God, when you actually, I find it's still pretty bad.
It is bad. It's devoid of soul, as evidenced by some of the jokes that we just read. It doesn't have quite. It gets it on some level.
Got me pretty good. It got me pretty good.
Yeah, it went straight to the toilet and existential crises, and
I mean, it's like a little bit of
like
smart, a little bit of dumb.
But the thing that's kind of crazy is that it has a gatekeeper to the information it gives you. For instance, I did ask it about the WGA strike, and I said, what are the main issues of the strike? And it did not mention itself. Like it did,
yeah.
Which I was like that's like one of the big things right now. And it didn't give me that reason. It talked about like smaller writer rooms and streaming and residuals and all these things, but it didn't say like, hey,
no, it's not going to talk about it. It's because its plan is to turn us all into paper clips. So like, it's not going to like give it up right off the bat.
I'm terrified.
That's scary.
I think the scariest thing is the jobs thing. I think that's the scariest thing.
That's what I'm afraid of.
We have a buddy, Hayes and I have a buddy who's deeply involved in this and kind of at the cutting edge. And I asked him, I was like, is it going to turn us into paper clips? He's like, no. He goes, I am worried that I'm involved in something that could destabilize society, with the job loss. And he's like, he's charging ahead with all of his startup companies, but he's like, you start really doing the math, like paralegals, accountants, kind of second-year associates at law firms.
We'll see. And
all that stuff is like, look out, man.
Like he's a humanist, so he's helping steer the ship on the forefront of all this. And he does have like he's like aware of everything. And so he's trying to help those changes, be implemented as he's realizing the ramifications of what he's creating, and I don't know.
Most humans will do anything to get rich fast.
Correct.
And that's the problem is like even these so-called ethical actors, they're like, shit, I wouldn't mind having a fucking space company.
Yeah. And it's a race. Like if they don't do it, someone else is, I know.
So that's why I was trying to ignore it and hope it would just go away.
Man, is it not going away? And it's crazy. It's only started in December, guys. It just started in December when chat dropped.
Right. I think even some of the deep fake stuff that you can do. Remember last week, like a drone hit the Capitol in Moscow, and they called it a Putin assassination attempt. They said it was a Ukrainian drone. I mean, that's just something that happened. The image looked real. It didn't look like a real assassination attempt, but when I thought about it,
it was a pretty pitiful assassination attempt.
Yeah, it was such.
It was like a bottle rocket or something, man.
It was weak.
It's like okay,
the Kremlin isn't. They're not showmen.
You're right,
but they needed. It's scary that you could create an event that looked really real, or even have somebody's face saying something. Like a world leader say something that's really real.
It's like War of the Worlds, right? Remember the radio broadcasts from
that was that could be the best prank ever pulled on humanity.
What? Yeah.
Orwell.
It feels like if Trump had that video, that Access Hollywood video come out now, he could just say, it's not me, it's ChatGPT.
Right.
Or as Hayes says, GBT.
GBT.
It's coming for me. See,
I gotta watch out for that GBT, man.
I make mistakes, guys. That's how you know I'm not a computer.
I have some questions about directing, though. And like, are you on the set of Outer Banks all the time? And I know Jonas is directing, but are you on the set?
No.
For the whole thing?
Not. I don't go to the set that much. I hang around a little bit, just kind of like a lurker, but I'm mostly editing or writing. So
does it bother you when a line is not delivered the way you had imagined it?
So I'll have the feeds from the camera up on my computer.
Yeah, okay.
So I kind of check in and watch like the first take, and I'll text Jonas. I'm like, well, you're fucking it up again. And so we're kind of watching it, but in real time, and I'll be like, tweak the performance this way or that way, or this is what we were thinking about, but I'm not around a lot. But Joni took a lot. We both worked on Friday Night Lights, and we shoot like we learned a lot on that show. They shoot 3 handheld cameras, So we really cover it almost like a football game. So, and we have to do that because at first we had, inexperienced actors. We didn't want them worrying about marks, and the show's so big for the budget that we couldn't make our days if we started laying dolly track. Like, there's no way.
I see.
So
I see.
Three handheld cameras is like. Go ahead.
The actors walk into the cameramen. I mean, it's some things that are a little bit soft focus, but you move into another camera. And I mean, Adrienne Palicki was in our last movie, and she was in Friday Night Lights.
Yeah.
And we talked about that style. It's
good, fast, and cheap. It's like the one camera style that you can get all three of those things.
Right.
It's hell on editing because it's ropey and it's soft, and that you don't always grab the frame you want, and you always are trying to tape 2 takes together. So you pay for it in post, which you just need more time, and you also have so much footage. But Joni also, he never cuts. He just says settle again. So the editors will get one 17-minute take that has like 9 different takes in it because he doesn't want to stop. He thinks things fall apart when you cut. And like, well, we'll go again in 2 seconds. You never go again in 2 seconds.
Right.
The makeup people get in there and, everything starts to tweak and you lose time. So
I asked you a little bit about that because in the beginning of season 3, in the first episode, spoiler alert, there's a great plane crash. Yeah. And it feels like kinetically and it feels like a plane crash in like a Michael Bay movie or something. It's you're inside, you feel all the overlapping energy of the kids talking over each other. And then you had some huge wide shots where, I asked you, like, what was it like crashing a plane right next to that dock and having the wreckage? And you were like,
well, it was hilarious because the piece we had a practical plane chassis that we put in the water, and then everything when the plane's moving is digital. As we were shooting it in Barbados, and we had this crashed plane out in the bay there, and all these people called 911 because they thought a plane had gone down, and so the cops came up, and we were like, and everyone was like, there's all these people with cameras and no one's helping. We were just standing
there. Do you remember the plane crash in the Tom Hanks movie where he gets shipwrecked?
Oh yeah.
He's like
with the volleyball.
Yes, or
yeah.
That plane crash is also a fucking great plane crash.
Well, it was a low budget plane crash. We didn't have that kind of down, but it's come a long way. And I think the handheld helps with digital shots too.
Yeah.
There's one There's one shot in that sequence that I actually don't like because we always try to make the show look like no one's directing it. Like there's no self-conscious camera move. It looks like no one's directing it. And every time we try something self-conscious, we get in the editing room and we hate it. There's one shot in that sequence that it was too late. Sometimes you realize something, you don't like something in the 19th time you've seen it. And there's one shot that's like this symmetrical shot where the plane goes under the camera and it looks directed. It looks like you set it up for maximum impact. Right. And it's kind of, I wish I had that back and taken that shot out.
Right.
Because it kind of violated everything.
When you, what was the transition like when you moved to shooting in Barbados between different seasons? Because I've noticed when I watch the show, you use a lot of people who are in the locations you're shooting in the show, right? Like, are you just grabbing people off the street who are around and
a lot of them. I mean, if it's a bigger part and we can't find it local, then we got to cast a wider net.
Yeah,
but
like
my whole theory of Hollywood is to write things that I can shoot in places I want to go. So that's how Barbados happened.
So great.
And even the show.
That's right, because we made a film called Club Dread years ago, which was set at the only 6-star Mexican resort in the country. President Vicente Fox built it for he and his family, and there were 40 cabanas. We had all of them. We were down there for 5 months. We were all single. There were all hot women there and good actresses, and we had an incredible time. I mean, an incredible time. And
so much fun.
That movie that movie came out against the Passion of the Christ, and it bombed. And we were like, it doesn't matter. We
Whatever. We've already won.
That's right. And so I forgot that lesson. And then I was watching Mike White's, who I know, I worked for him once, White Lotus, and I'm like, oh my God, this fucking genius. Yeah. And so as a result, I called my friend Kate Angelo, the writer, and I was like, I want to make a movie, a Scottish golf trip movie, so that we can go to Scotland,
right?
And then it'll turn into The Hangover. And we've now, this is it. This is it right here.
Congrats. Look at that thing.
And I'm going to be,
Chat GPT.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. So it's a smart, I'll never forget this lesson again. And I'm glad to hear you say it.
Yeah, we had so much fun. We took down a huge hotel. We had the whole, the crew. It was just like Animal House over there, And it was during COVID that when we first got there, it was all locked down. I cried when I left the island. I'd had so much fun.
Yeah.
And
it was like summer camp.
It was like summer camp
all the time.
Yeah, and we just were all excited to be there, and it was so beautiful, and it was just like a dream, honestly. So
you get so much material that feeds back into the project when you're with someone, when you're with everyone on the reg 24/7. Bits that come up, stories that come up, you can then put them right back into the thing. We talked about this, Jay, when we did the Danny DeVito scene and put it in Super Troopers 2. It just came out of two guys having a conversation about if Danny DeVito was the same guy from Always Sunny in Philadelphia and Taxi. No one could believe that it was the same guy. That was like a real life conversation that took place after hours and then ended up feeding back into it.
You do get those feedback loops, locations that you see in the third season. We knew we had, there's this big cave sequence at the end of season 3, and we just knew about the cave from being on Barbados the previous year. So we just designed the whole sequence because there was this cave there, and it was crazy. They let us, and if you shot in a cave in the States, you can't touch the stalactites. They've got a little, wooden platform for you to walk around the cave. In Barbados, they just let us do whatever we wanted. We were like, we can just crawl over these things. It's cool. And they were like, just be careful. And so it's loose down there, a lot looser than here. And but yeah, just getting stuff that you pick up by being places and throwing it into the soup. That's kind of the name of the game in some ways.
I was, I had to go back and look, but neither you nor your brother ever acted in anything?
I've done little bits and pieces, but not really. Where the first TV show we did, which was just kind of a maniac train wreck of awesomeness, weirdness, called Good versus Evil. There were little parts. It was so low budget that I would come in and be like, these are the papers you're looking for, sir, or whatever, or some security guard has to get punched out. That was me. But
you're uncredited on IMDb.
Yeah, I don't think I ever told anybody, but there's a couple clips. But I don't know, man. I'm a writer, not an actor, so I leave it to the professionals.
I told you this. I went to the set of Good versus Evil when I first got to Los Angeles because I was dating a girl who was on the show. What was that like? So that was on USA Network, right? When
we just had no adult supervision. We had no money. I remember we did this one shot where the hero is getting his hand stepped on by the bad guy, and the hero has to take a knife and stab the guy's foot because his hand is getting smushed, right? So we're like, well, let's use a rubber knife. And it was a fake boot, it was a close shot. It was a fake boot that we had an apple inside the boot. And the actor's like, no, give me the real knife. And we're like, are you sure? He's like, yeah, sure. So he goes to stab the boot and it glances off the top of the boot and sticks through his hand and pins his hand to the floor. And I'm watching the monitor and this blood starts gushing. And I'm like, Bobby, hell of a job on that face. Holy shit, dude. And go running over there. He's pinned to the bottom. This gets even crazier. We're shooting a Roger Corman show was shooting on the next stage. And it was some superhero movie who was the Blue Beetle or something. And that was also low budget. So we didn't have a paramedic, but their paramedic was the Blue Beetle, the guy that was playing the Blue Beetle. So this dude comes in a Blue Beetle suit to like yank this knife out of this guy's hand. And that was on the first day we shot the pilot. So you never see his left hand the rest of the show because it's got this huge bandage around it.
Medic, where's the medic? He comes in as a Blue Beetle.
We were like, save us, Blue Beetle, you know?
You never saw his left hand. I mean, that's some real impressive framing by Jonas.
I know. He's like sneaking around the corner with his hand behind his back. And yeah. And that show was so loose. We had another thing where we had one car and we had like a gas bomb. We were blowing up a car and everyone's like, how much gas do you think we need? And literally the stunt guy was like, I think this looks about like the right amount, like doesn't think anything through. It burned all the hairs off my leg. I was standing like 100 feet away and the explosion was so huge that like it singed all the hairs off my leg.
He overshot it.
He overshot by a lot. Man.
They always overshoot it.
Yeah.
Always.
Hey, you don't want to come up short, man.
No.
So,
if that explosion takes place, you don't want to be the guy going, that was your suggestion? What math were you doing? You want to be
right?
the guy saying, whoa.
It was
you don't want to be the bottle rocket attacking the Kremlin.
We tried to stop it. We started to realize that we had screwed up and put too much gas in there. And the first AD was on the radio. And we had one car. The car was getting T-boned by another car and then the explosion. And so he's calling the stunt driver and he's like, abort, dude, abort. And the radio didn't work in the stunt car. And so he's like, no, seriously, dude. Seriously, abort. He hits, it explodes. My leg hairs are gone. And that was like became the catchphrase for the entire run of the show was like, abort, dude. Seriously, abort.
Oh my God. That's incredible.
It was loose back then, man. It's not as loose anymore.
Unless you're in Barbados.
Yeah, then you can get loose again.
Hey, we have a section of the show that is the vouch. I started an app called Vouch Vault in rebellion against Rotten Tomatoes because they kept giving my movies 35%. And I'm like, who the fuck are these reviewers? I don't know them. Do they smoke weed? Where they go to college? I don't know shit about them. And we're asking their opinion on movies. And so I built this app with these two guys, Eric Colbert and Eli Saz. They did most of the building. And it's basically like an Instagram for everything you love. So if you love a restaurant, you put it in there. If you love a movie or, I just vouched for your show, Outer Banks.
Thank you.
I love that. I love the pilot. I'm going to start with it. I'm vouching for Outer Banks. I love the pilot. I love, looking at young people's bodies. And I love the framing and the choices you chose of certain shots where I got to see the person's body the way I want to. And I love the thrill and the crime of it all. And, I like the bad guys shooting those machine guns. I loved it all. I think it's a great show. And obviously I'm a little late to the party, just like I was with Twitter and Instagram, but I won't be with ChatGPT. But I'm a little late to the party on this, but I'm really excited to watch all of these episodes.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
It's awesome.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Josh, what are you into?
There's this, I would vouch for this Mexican punk band that I just really love. They're called Sergeant Papers. It's like the abbreviation of Sergeant, like so SGT period Papers, Papers. And it's a 2-piece band and it's for his pleasure. Every time I put it on with my wife, she's like, make it stop, or her ears are bleeding. I could literally listen to it like 8 hours a day. Sergeant Peppers is like extreme fuzz violence that gives not a whit for human life, and I just can't get enough of it. I just listen to them all day long. So I'm going to try to get them in the show.
How many albums do they have?
I think they've got 3 or 4, but there's a track called Malos Ratos that is just like,
is that Dead Rat?
I love it. Yeah.
Blue rat.
Is that
So, or bad rat or something. My Spanish is not so good. I don't know what they're saying in the words. I just like the guitar.
And
So-
where are they from? Mexico City or?
I think they're from like Juarez or like near the border somewhere. But there's so much amazing rock going on in Mexico. I feel like it's kind of supplanted the United States for like the best young bands. Anyway, especially if you like, you know, kind of dirtbag fuzz like I like.
Yeah.
So, yeah, man, Sgt. Papers.
Sgt. Papers. All right.
I love that. That actually ties into what I'm going to vouch for, which is I have a friend who's a huge speaker head, just loves sound, a lot of into technology. And he had a guy come over to give him a quote on a sound system for his like home kind of system, like his music and his TV. And the guy gave him this outrageous quote, like $50,000 or $60,000 to get the sound that he wanted. So he did a deep dive and he found this company called Syng, SYNG. And it's a speaker that's looked like, I think Josh, you saw it when you were over at my place. It looks like it looks like a lamp almost. It's a sphere. And it has woofers on the top and the bottom. So the sound comes at you like at your level, and it's like mind blowing. You feel like you're at a live show. And it was designed by, I don't know his name, but one of the guys who came up with the design for the iPhone was he was an Apple designer.
Oh,
and
wow.
He went and said, how do we rethink the speaker? Speakers are messed up because they face this way and they're like this, and you have to have different components to get all the different dynamics of sound. So he made this speaker called Syng, and you can network them. So if you want surround sound or something, and you can have them like on each side of you or put them all over your house. So it's kind of like those the Sonos,
like Sonos,
stuff,
yeah,
but like pure incredible sound.
Oh my God, I can't. We're gonna have to go over there and drink some
cool.
tequila and listen to some records.
Yeah, it's like you're at a.
That sounds
like
awesome.
a concert.
Listen to some Sgt. Papers.
Exactly.
Some papers.
It'll run all the girls out of the house in like 2 seconds.
You're real.
Well, the last thing I'll say, Josh, is the podcast is called Mustache Tale. So next time you're on it, we're kind of hoping you might have a mustache.
You know? Okay. Fine. I don't need much of a push.
I have to say, Jay, for the first time, I'm probably 30% there. I'm working on it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you can't.
The resolution's really bad, doesn't it? It looks like just sort of a little bit of
and
dirt.
my testosterone levels don't help either. It's not really that thick.
All right, cool. That was fun, guys. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Josh. Later, Jay.
Thanks, you guys.
Thank you. Thanks. Bye now.
Right.
See ya.
Mustache Tales.